morning. All right. We are going live today. We are going to be talking about your dream vacation and how to make it happen. So, as you guys are rolling in, please say hi in the chat. As always, I've got the comments up here so I can see the comments here. The Facebook comments are right over here. So, if you see me look in different places, that's why. It does take me a little bit of time to get all of the channels up and running at the same time. So, give me just a second to make this happen. Yeah, introduce yourself as you guys join. That's really funny how you would think that this would be so much easier. As you guys are rolling in, and normally I say, hey, like, let me know where you're from, whatever. This time, I want to hear what your dream vacation is. So today we're talking about dream vacations. And so I would love to know, like, what is your dream vacation? What, if you could go one place in the world, where would it be and why? Like, I'd love to hear some of those stories. Or if you've been on one recently, I'd love to hear that too. Alrighty. So this says we are live video is starting. I love the how this works. All right. It says you are now live. Comments are there. So awesome. Okay. Great. It looks like all of the platforms are up and running now. And so as you guys are joining, just again, let me know, where are you from and what is your dream vacation? Dang it. So pushing buttons. One of these days, I'll have somebody just do this stuff for me. I really should have someone else launch this stuff and have them run this. But we will get started in about 30 seconds. So hopefully you guys are here. You guys can start seeing this. Again, as you join this Facebook Live, just jump in. Let us know where you're viewing from, location or platform. I've got multiple platforms going on, so I'd love to know where people are coming and joining us from. Specifically, I want to know, what's your dream vacation? So today we're going to be talking about dream vacations and how to make them a reality as a lawyer. And then, so I want to know where that is. We are live. Okay. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, we are at the top of the hour. And so I am going to just jump in and make this happen. So as always, we've got multiple platforms that we're doing this on. And so it takes a couple minutes to get everything running. And then I want to give people a couple minutes to join. So we have a little conversation at the beginning, and then I get rid of that and we start over, and the recording will then be clean from this point on. So we will start now. Good morning. This is Chris Guyman, the Time Freedom Lawyer, and today we are going to be talking about dream vacations. So as you join us, I want to know, where are you coming from? Where are you seeing this live? And what is your dream vacation? So this is kind of a fun conversation for me. And I spend a lot of time talking to people about time freedom and making money and how to get more clients and those types of things. And I think it's really important to spend a little bit of time thinking about why. Why are we having these conversations? What does that money actually mean to you? In fact, I've come to realize that, sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. I've come to realize that having a strong why to help you make money is significantly more impactful in helping you make money than knowing how to make money. I know that sounds funny, right? But the strong why, the strong motivation to achieve a goal is going to help you achieve that goal more than the tactics. And the truth is, you can find these tactics online for free. Information is abundant in our current society. So in fact, if information was the reason everybody was rich, then college professors would be the richest people in the world, right? These are the people with doctorate degrees, and they're studying and learning so much. Yet, if you pay attention, most college professors are not the richest people in the world, right? And so information is not the bottleneck here anymore. What is that action, and it's consistent action over time, and it's taking the right actions long enough to produce the results. And the only way I have found for people to be able to do that is to have a strong why, a strong motivation. So when I first started practicing, I made 78,000 my first year and only made 14. I effectively kept 14 of it. I effectively made minimum wage, and that's not enough to support a family, right? But because I had a wife and son at home, and my wife was going to school, like everything fell on me to bring home the bacon, right? And so I had a strong motivation to learn how to grow, and not surprisingly, my business grew quickly. Fast forward a couple of years, now my business is doing well, and I kind of lost that fire behind my growth. And I got to the point where I was playing like 20, 30 hours of video games a week at work. So I was making enough money, like we were paying our mortgage, we were doing all those things, we were still going on a couple trips, whatever. And I just didn't have a strong why. And so that was the most miserable time of my life. And people often ask, like, why would you take time away from your law firm that produces all this money to come and coach? And I mean, I still spend significantly more time on my coaching practice than I do my law firm now. And dollar per hour, my law firm is significantly more profitable still. But the answer is because I was miserable for a lot of years. And it wasn't until I revisited the conversation that we're having today that I found joy in my practice and joy in my life. And that was having that strong why. How I did that, though, I was challenged by a coach early on. And this coach kind of said, okay, you want to set these financial goals. That's great. And you've set financial goals in the past and not hit them. What are you going to do with this money if you actually make it? And I spent some time thinking through it. And I said, you know what? I want to pay off my house. I don't like the stress of and the thought and the idea that if something were to go bad in my business, that I could lose the shelter for my family, right? So I want to pay that off. It didn't make sense financially. Okay, we had a 3% interest rate. We obviously should have invested that money other places, but this was a strong desire for us to protect our family. So I then went forth and said, okay, how am I going to pay off my house in the next year? It ended up taking us 18 months. It took us a little bit longer than a year to pay off our house. But we did. We paid off our house in 18 months. And it was really cool to see how when I finally had a goal to work towards, how much easier it was for me to go to work and work. The amount of hours I played video games went significantly down, and the amount of impact I had went up. And so when I come here and I say, hey, let's talk about your dream vacation, there's a reason I'm doing this. Our dream vacation is going to make you happy. Maybe, maybe not. But will you learning this skill set that we're about to talk about to earn a dream vacation, having that tool, having that ability to grow, having that ability to achieve your goals, will that make you happy? I actually think it will. And you'll find what happiness means to you as you're doing this. And this is the first part. So with most of my coaching clients, when we get early on, this is the conversation I have is, hey, what would you do with this money? Where was somewhere you'd want to go? What's something fun you want to do? My kids, they love Disneyland. Maybe as much as me, maybe not. I don't know. I love Disneyland too. I blame it on my kids. We went to Disneyland a couple times last year. And for me, this was a very motivating factor. So I want to hear from you guys. What is that motivating factor for you? So if you had, an abundance of money, however much this trip would cost, where would you go? What would you do? Just drop it right in the comments, right in the chat. But I want to hear, where would you go? And my wife, I think at this point, she would say Hawaii. We've done a lot of fun things, and funny enough, she just really wants to go to Hawaii. I've been there before. It was cool. It wasn't the coolest thing for me. I'd spend my money elsewhere. So I've not been motivated to make that trip happen, which is why it hasn't. But she was saying Hawaii the other day. So I was like, okay, it's time to make that dream a reality. If it's a dream for her, it's a dream for me. So she would say Hawaii, but I want to hear from you guys. What would you do? Where would you go? If you could pick somewhere, just drop it in the chat. I want to know, where would you go if you had an abundance of time and money and energy to do that? And then the question is, what's stopping you? What's stopping you from going there right now? And I want you to spend a little bit of time thinking through that as well. Realistically, could you take that trip right now? If not, I want to know why. Amy's the first to give us a response. She says she would do a month in West Europe, I think is what that means. So that would be awesome. right? A month in Europe. That would be so cool to just hike through Europe or however you want to travel through Europe and experience the culture and the stuff there. That would be awesome. I'm guessing for most attorneys here, the idea of just being gone for a significant amount of time, right? A month, that would be impossible. What would happen with your firm if you left? So, and welcome. We got a lot of people coming in and saying hi. I love that. And I want to hear as you guys are coming in, where would you go? Where would you go and what's stopping you? This is going to be a lot more productive of a conversation. I mean, I can just talk about the stuff that I have if we want to do that, but I'd rather talk about the things that are actually stopping you. So if you wanted to take a month, what would stop you? What would make it so that you couldn't just take a month off and travel? Here are my thoughts as you guys are rolling in with the comments. I'll add some of my thoughts as well. Obviously, there's the money side, right? These trips cost money, so we need cash. That's probably the easiest thing to fix, though. As if you've ever looked at some of these trips, a lot of the times they're not that expensive. Like to do a month in Europe, you got to get to Europe and you got to get back. Well, my friend just flew to Paris for $250 a ticket. In fact, man, there was someone else here on Facebook. I can't remember their name right now, but they flew first class to Paris for like $650 a ticket. Her and her husband, I think is what it was. So for less than $1,300, you can get to Europe and maybe even first class. So the money's going to be the easiest. And then as Taylor says, money, obviously, and not having systems in place to keep things running without me losing out on new potential clients. That's a really good one. I'm glad you pointed that out because obviously the systems of fulfilling the work, that's going to be a big part, but also the intake system of getting new clients. That's going to be big. And Amy mentions having to get all deadlines met early, anticipate the deadlines and what will happen while they're gone. Have someone to care for her home. That's a great point as well, right? In addition to your office, you have personal responsibilities as well. So that's a really good one as well. So good. All right. So we've got money. We've got the systems to meet the obligations in your firm. You've got some personal responsibilities as well that need to be met. When my wife and I were talking about this, we were planning out a trip, or this is more of like a dreamlining trip that I don't know if we'll ever actually take it or not. We'll see. But we were thinking like, man, it'd be so fun to go somewhere in the summer for like 6 weeks and just go to Argentina and learn Spanish, or go to Paris and learn France, or go to Paris and learn French, and go learn a language, just kind of engulf yourself in the culture for 6+ weeks or so and just really learn a new experience. That's one of my favorite things to do. I love traveling and just seeing what people do for fun and whatnot in that area. Like we were just in Nashville and we went to the Opry. Well, I'm not a big country music fan, but it was so cool to just go and engulf yourself in the culture of that area and eat their food and do the things that they love to do. And just as I was watching these musicians perform and the audience engage, I was like, man, this is cool. This is cool to see how much these people love this experience, and something I would have never thought of. And it kind of opened my eyes to what's possible. And so I think that's a blast, right? And to be gone for a month or 6 weeks, that's really, really hard. It's easy to go for a week. I think as people are rolling in, as they're saying stuff, I think if you guys raise your hand, what's the longest amount of time you'd feel comfortable being gone from your firm? Some people are going to say extended weekends. Most people are going to say a week. Most people will find that to take a week off is tough, but it's doable. Like you can move deadlines around and be gone for a week. 2 weeks is when it starts to get tough. It's kind of hard to put off the court for multiple weeks and put off deadlines for multiple weeks, right? It's easy to ask for a week extension. It's a lot harder to ask for a 6-week extension or a 2-week extension, right? So, as you're thinking through this, I want you to actually be thinking through this. Okay, what is it going to take for us to make this happen? So let's talk about the money thing first. That's going to be the easiest one to solve. When it comes to money, we need clients and we need to do the work and we need to have a profit margin on there. And why this becomes so hard for attorneys is as Taylor mentioned, the new client acquisition relies on them. In order for you to get a new client in your firm, you have to do a consultation. And so if you're gone, there's no consultations and no new clients. And then once you get a new client, you're the attorney doing the work. And therefore, if you're gone, the work doesn't get done, right? And so you don't have any cash flow while you're gone. And then the other question is the profit margin, right? And this is what prevents most attorneys from scaling, is they don't have a large enough profit margin when they're the one doing the work. And therefore, when they hire people to help them, there's not enough profit left over for the business owner. So 3 things to consider. We could do a live on each one of those things individually, but I want you to just kind of become familiar with that. The goal here will then be to set it up a way so you have a system for acquiring new clients while you're gone, a system for delivering on the services while you're gone, and then a system that's cash flow positive enough that you can have a profit even when you're not doing the work. So how I did this, and I think is probably the most advisable way to do this, is start with the profit calculation. There's a lot of different profit calculators out there, right? I have one in Attorney Freedom University as part of our coaching program, but you can find these. ChatGPT could probably make you one. There's going to be a ton of people out there where you really spend some time figuring out, where is your money going? I dare say that 95% of the attorneys that I talk to have never done the math to know where their money's going. And so if you are interested in creating a business that gives you freedom of location, freedom of time, it's going to start with the profit calculation. And it's really funny. So in our Fast Track to Freedom coaching program, we have a 12-week program that's designed to help people get to $10,000 a week. I call it the Fast Track to Freedom, because it's really just designed to speed up your progress, right? In that, I wanted to start with the profit calculation. That's what I wanted to do. But I had a really hard time getting the clients buy-in on doing that until they saw results. And so that program is actually designed where I help people get clients first. And then after they've gotten clients, then we talk about profit. But the truth is, and I'm telling everyone here now, an admission, the most impactful part of that program is not the client acquisition part. It's the profit calculation. Most people have never done that profit calculation, and therefore they don't even know where their money's going. And once they do that and they see the numbers and they see how little money they're actually making for the amount of work they do, they start to value their time more, and they grow from there. And so I try to do that around like week 4 or 5 of the program, early on in the program, because I know what they want to hear, but I know what they need to do. And that's the thing. So the first step that I would encourage all of you to do is start with that profit calculation, figure it out, and then decide what you think it should be. And there's a lot of guidelines out there as well. You're going to see things that I think are a little bit archaic in the model. And so I want to address those here, but you can refine the numbers that make the most sense for you. Historically, you would hear old law firms, like old big law firms, that would say a third of the income should go to the attorney doing the work. A third of the gross income should go to the expenses, and a third should go to the business owner. That's a very standard division, right? I have found that I am able to be significantly more efficient than that in today's society. There are a lot of systems and tools and AI and whatever that allow you to be more efficient than you were in the past. And so I personally have chosen to pay my attorneys more. My attorneys make about 50% and up of the money that they collect. And what that has allowed me to do is, because I pay them more, I'm able to hire the top talent in the area, and which means we produce better work. Because we produce better work, we're able to charge more, and the clients are still happy. So, but this all started with the profit calculation. And so if you only get one thing out of today's presentation, I would hope it's that. I'd hope it would be that you spend some time understanding your numbers. And attorneys, I know we hate numbers, but it's worth the exercise. it's worth spending some time calculating that profit and figuring out where your money's going and what the profit margin should be and going from there. So I pay the attorneys, my base associates, they make 50%. My partner level senior attorneys, it's based off of how much they've generated each month is how you get to that level. But if they're generating more, they can make up to 65% of the money that they bill. And that's worked for me. But when I trickle all those numbers down, and I've already taken money out for the expenses and the other teams and all this kind of stuff, right? Like my paralegals, they're billing as well. And, we have all these other things as well, right? What ends up happening is the leftover profit is 20%. That's the number I have chosen. I have a really good friend, Elise Bowie. Hers, I think, is 25%. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. She has a much larger firm than I have, and is at 25%, if I remember right. And so I like to be in that range. What I have personally, again, decided to do is I overpay my paralegals, I overpay my team. Everybody is paid about 10 to 15% more than is market standard in this area. I feel like I want to create a good lifestyle for me. I want to create a good lifestyle for them. Lifestyle is a big part of it. So we aggressively compensate our team, which has reduced my profit by about 5%. And for me, that's worth it. You can decide what makes the most sense for you, but start with the profit calculation. Everything from there then just makes it easy. Now, when you're doing this, you need to break up the profit to show what percentage is profit and what percentage of that pay is being compensated to the attorney who's doing the work. Now, I know when you're starting out, you're the attorney doing the work. So you're going to be the one receiving both the profit and the attorney compensation. That's okay. That's good. If you are doing work as an attorney, you should be paid for that. You should be compensated for the work that you're doing as the CEO of the company and the work that you are doing as the attorney doing the work. And if you set it up this way properly at the beginning, then when you go to scale and you go to hire an attorney, you can afford it. And if you don't, if you have a tight profit margin at the beginning because you're the one doing all the work, so I don't need to make that much money, then you won't have the profit margin to scale. So it starts there. Amy asked a good question, and I have to hit see more to see it. She wrote gross revenue minus overhead equals net profit. Yes, that's the general idea, right? Now, if you've read books like Profit First, if you wanted to dive deep into this, I love the principle that they teach there about how you pay yourself profit first. And he'll have different numbers than what we've talked about here. Because Profit First is probably the biggest book on this topic, I do want to address one of the numbers that they talk about there. In that book, he'll have profit margins that he suggests. And I think one of which is, like 50% of your revenue should be profit when you're first starting out, if you're the one doing all the work. That book is designed, and I don't think it's super clear on this. And so, especially as attorneys who aren't familiar with business, we sometimes misinterpret what he's saying there. In that book, he talks about cost of goods sold. And so when he's saying 50% profit, what he is saying is you take the total gross revenue, all the dollars that come in, and you subtract the cost of goods sold. So if you were selling a widget and that widget was $10 and you sold it for 15, then the cost of goods sold would be 66% of everything, right? There'd be $5 left over. And he was saying that 50% of that $5 should be profit. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not a seller of widgets, so I don't know where he came up with those numbers. Obviously he's sold a lot of books. And so, he knows probably profit better than I do, but I want to be clear on that because what are the costs of goods sold for attorneys? Not a trick question. I want you to think about this and I want you to answer and share if you know the answer. What are the costs of goods sold for attorneys? And the answer is yes, exactly. It's services, right? So it is our time. If you're trading your time for money, it's our time. If you're doing flat fees, it's the outcome that you're selling, right? Whatever it is, it's still a service, and that costs us something to provide that service. And the answer of what it costs us, the cost of goods sold for us, is the time of an attorney. So no matter whether it's you doing the work or someone you hire, an attorney has to do the legal work, right? You can hire staff to do the non-legal work, but when it comes to legal advice, an attorney has to do it. That is our cost of goods sold. So we have to build that into our profit calculation and then do your profit after that. So my 20% is not after the cost of goods sold. Okay. So about 40, 50% is attorney fees and stuff, right? So just make sure you're comparing apples to apples. When you hear my 20% and then you hear profit first and you're like 50%, you're like, man, Chris sucks, right? Just make sure you're comparing apples to apples, because I'm taking 20% of a bigger number and he's taking 50% of a smaller number. It doesn't matter which one you pick. And I hope that's the takeaway here, is just that you have profit after the fact and you've considered it. Now, costs of goods sold, those are the actual costs of services. So anybody who's billing. So if a paralegal is billing hours, then their time is a cost of goods sold. If an attorney is billing hours, their time is a cost of goods sold. Everything else are expenses. So your rent, your utilities, your insurance, those are just like costs, right? Those are not the cost of goods sold. Those are just standard expenses. Okay. So a little different. And you don't have to know all of this stuff. At the end, what I'd rather you see is just like, if you put utilities in with your cost of goods sold on accident, not going to break the bank. At the end of the day, what I want you to take away from this is how much money is coming in. Where is all of that going? Do you have money dedicated specifically to an attorney and an aggressive compensation that would fairly compensate an attorney for the work they're doing? And then do you have money left over as the business owner? Right? Because as you scale and you have 10 attorneys working under you, you may need a manager to manage those people, right? That's going to come out of the 20%. You're going to need a CEO, right? You get to 70 million a year. You're going to have a C-suite of people, the chief marketing officer, chief executive officer, right? Those are going to come out of the 20%, right? You've got to have that money left over to run the business. Now, it's not going to be a ton of money at the beginning, right? 20% of $10,000 is not a ton of money, but it's something, right? So just build out the percentages now, okay? And I think you're going to find more information doing that in your firm than almost anything else, which is going to bring you back to how to take that dream vacation you want. So once you know the numbers, then you need to start deciding how you're going to spend that money. And specifically, you need to start buying back your time so that you can go on these trips, right? So when I do this with my coaching clients, the first test I like to do is a week-long vacation. What do we need to do to get you to a week? And then I like to do 2 weeks, and then I like to do a month, and then we do a longer sabbatical after that for the top tier clients. So take this baby steps at a time, right? If you are just you, maybe it's just you and a paralegal, the idea of a 6-week vacation is probably incredibly daunting, right? But could you do a week? Like Amy already mentioned a couple minutes ago, she's done multiple 2 weeks vacations. So she's been actively involved in this conversation. She's talking about the travel, right? And she's a small firm and she's still been able to do 2 weeks, right? So that's a very different conversation than how to get to a month or 6 weeks, right? So start small, schedule a 1-week vacation, figure out how much it's going to cost you so that you have the money for it, and then figure out what systems you need in place. I bet everybody here on this live could take a 1-week vacation in the next 3 months. Super doable. Okay. For that level, you're going to need the money. You're going to need just a couple of systems, probably one team member, and the willingness to shut your phone off. That's what it's going to take, right? After you've taken the 1 week, then how do you get to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks? You're going to need a couple more systems, right? So for me, when I did this, to get to 1 week was super quick, and I was able to do that, and I felt good. The first time I took a 1-week vacation, I love cruises. So when people are doing this and they're like, okay, what should I do? I often tell people to take cruises. Now, cruise lines are making it harder for me. But back when we first did this, there was no internet on cruises, no cell phone service, no internet. So when you got on the ship and the ship drove away, or what is it drive? I don't know, floated away, you lost your service and you had to be in the vacation, right? Now they have Wi-Fi packages, and so they've ruined my test. But I would use these because then you'd be gone for a couple of days, and then you'd hit a port. And especially if you did some of the, the Mexican Riviera or some of those other cruises, and your phone would, most phone carriers have service in Mexico for free. You could check in for like an hour, but then you had to disconnect, right? So it was a great way of truly disconnecting, but still getting a couple of little check-ins. So I've used that as a lot of tests for people. But you disconnect and then you see what happens. That's the best part of this is you schedule the trip, you do the planning that you think is necessary, but then you actually have to take the trip. Believe in your team a little bit and see what happens. And then evaluate when you get back. So the first cruise I took, I emailed everybody. I was so worried, right? So I emailed every single client. Hey, thanks, Brandon, for showing up. We'll touch base later. Thanks for peacing out. So I emailed everybody, right? I emailed all my clients, letting them know, like, this is the plans I did. I emailed opposing counsel, let them know I'd be out of town, like even the courts. Just let them know, right? So I leave on Friday, and I told everybody, like, Friday at noon, I'm shutting my phone off, so I won't be able to get anything after Friday at noon. And Friday at 4, opposing counsel filed a motion that had to be responded to within 8 days, knowing full well that I was going to be gone the next week, right? So the entire 8 days would lapse while I was on vacation. Did they do that on purpose? Yes, they did, right? So now my team and I, we had a conversation. Hey, and I didn't know what would happen, but I was like, something may happen, right? There may be, someone kidnaps a kid and we need an emergency injunction, like something may happen. If so, call my friend Erin, right? Erin's another attorney in town. She and I are really good friends, and she has a similar practice as mine. She's a couple of years more experienced than me. And I'd asked her, hey, if something comes up, is it okay if Diane calls you? She's like, yeah, of course. Absolutely. So I'm gone, right? Diane had texted me, but I had already lost service at the time this was filed. And so, I'm out. So she reaches out to Erin. Erin then throws together an objection real quick, right? And files that with Diane then filed it with the court for me. They talked to the client and it was taken care of. So overall, that was the only thing that happened that week. That was a stressor. It was an attorney intentionally using my vacation notice. Now, can you imagine what the judge said to that attorney because that's what the objection said is, hey, this should have been filed on Monday. They intentionally filed it late in conjunction with Chris's vacation notice so that he would miss the 8 days, knowing he would be gone for 10 days, right? The judge did not take that kindly. There's a whole candor thing, I guess, you're supposed to follow. I don't know, but yeah. So that was it, right? I then realized, like, hey, I'm just not going to tell opposing counsel. How often do you go a whole week without talking to opposing counsel? So I was like, screw that. I'm never telling them again. That fixed that problem. But take the vacation, see what happens, and then modify from there. So, and yes, Amy asked, like, do you mean no work at all on vacation? For me, the answer has been yes to that. I have a really hard time turning my brain off. And so when I turn it on to work, then it kind of bleeds into like the next 4 hours of my vacation. So I have chosen to just turn it off. Now, when I go on longer vacations, I'll often plan like, hey, at this port, I'm going to log in and check for a couple hours, right? So when I did a 2-week cruise through Europe, there was a couple of countries that I had free cell phone connection, right? So my team and I, they knew, okay, on day 3, I'm going to check, day 9, day 11, or whatever it was. There was 3 days that I could check, and I checked in. But I strongly encourage, like, disconnect. I and my wife have now started every weekend, Saturday night, we get the kids put to bed, whatever, we get things. We then kind of check everything on our phones, and we say, okay, we're done. And we turn our phone off. And we don't check it through Sunday. And then Sunday night, we turn it back on and prep for the next day. That has been a game changer for us, to just disconnect, even for just a day. And then when we go on vacation, I disconnect there. Now, when I do Disneyland and stuff, obviously I still have cell phone service. And so I do not check my email at all. My virtual assistant obviously checks the email. She sends any law firm related questions to my legal team. And then any things that have to be responded to, my virtual assistant and my paralegal can obviously both text me. And so if there's an emergency, they text me. But because I have that fail-safe in place of, hey, if there's an emergency, text me, I can then rest at ease knowing that if they don't text me, there's no emergency. And so I don't need to check. That's how I've done it. So step one, create the money, right? Know your profit. Step two is create the systems. For a week-long vacation, I find that legit, like just thinking through it a little bit and saying, okay, what do I need to have in order for this week-long vacation? And taking the vacation, the knowledge you learn from taking that vacation is going to be more valuable than anything I teach you today. And so you're like, well, Chris, why aren't you telling me exactly like how to do an autoresponder while I'm gone? To be honest, it's better for you to just take that first week vacation and learn from it than any autoresponder I can teach you. I personally have gone away from all autoresponders because most people don't even know you're gone. And so the people who need to know I'm gone, they know, right? So if there's a hearing on a Thursday and I'm going to be gone, and so Paul's covering for me, then that client knows, hey, I'm gone, so Paul will be covering. I've prepped Paul. Paul knows what's going on. Paul's a better attorney than I am. So honestly, you're lucky that you get Paul for this hearing, but that's what's worked for me, right? So I only notify people, and then I have my team check my email. Now, what are the main systems that you should have? I think every attorney, with or without vacation, should have someone checking their email first. Who here, like, that makes your heart drop? You're like, there's no way I would ever let someone touch my email inbox. And there's a little bit of delay on the recording, so I'll see who says yes to that. But I'd love to know who here is like, no, there's no way. There's no way I would let someone touch my inbox. Because that's one of the biggest objections I get. It's the biggest time consumer, your email. And it's the biggest objection. Amy's even mentioned it once already on why I can't go on vacation because I have to check my email. And so who here would allow somebody to at least do the initial sorting of their email inbox? Or that's just like, no way. So I had a coaching client a year ago say this exact same thing. We were at our mastermind event in Philadelphia, and we were talking about it, and he was just like, there's no way I could ever let someone touch my email. After so many mastermind members had shared their experience, he's like, okay, I'll try it. He got a virtual assistant, and he used the SOP I have. And I have a free SOP. I'd happily share it with you if you're wanting to start delegating your email. Happily give that to you for free. And gave him that SOP and had him jump into it. And we just did our mastermind in Nashville, like I mentioned, a couple weeks ago. And so it's been 1 year since he decided to delegate his email. And he's like, I could never go back. The quality of work that he provides to his clients is exponentially better because he was spending upwards of 4 hours a day doing his email. And he now spends 20 to 30 minutes a day. And because he now has those extra 3.5 hours a day back of his life, he can spend that doing legal work. And that has just changed his life, right? His clients are getting better work. They're also getting better responses. And that was the thing he never thought. He's like, man, only I can respond to this, right? Only I know the answer. Well, truth is no. About 80% of his questions could be responded to with a frequently asked questions. So what happened is he and his virtual assistant each day went through the questions. And when they had questions, he would help her with the answer. And then she took that answer and she stored it. And within about 2 or 3 weeks, she had a frequently asked questions. It's not like she just sends them the FAQ. She had it to use. And then when someone would ask a question, she'd be like, hey, really good question. Thanks for reaching out. This is Monette, David's assistant. And he has drafted a frequently asked question that answers this exact same thing. So this is what he says, right? She'd just give them the answer, making sure they understood, like, this isn't the assistant's answer. This is a pre-drafted answer that David has drafted. And let me know if this answers your question. So then she would give them that and say, if that doesn't answer your question, please let me know, and I'll get a more customized answer from David. But like 80% of the questions just went away. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so helpful. And now, instead of them having to wait for David for 1, 2, 3 days sometimes, they're getting an answer in 30 minutes. and it's exactly what they needed. So now the clients are getting better service, and David's getting 3.5 hours of his day back, all by letting someone take care of his email. Now, when there's an answer that isn't a frequently asked question, she then puts it in a specific folder. David logs into his email once a day and responds to those things. And then she takes his responses and adds it to the FAQ, so she has more and more opportunities to answer things on her own. And they work together on that, right? So that is probably going to get you, if you take a week vacation, you have an SOP for your emails, that alone should be enough to get you there. Now, to take longer vacations, I'm talking anything over 2 weeks, you are going to need an attorney to help you with the legal services. I do think that you're either going to have to do the work on vacation, which I don't consider a vacation. That's just working from another location, which is cool. Like freedom of location is cool, but it's not a vacation, right? So you're either going to have an attorney, or you're going to have some sort of service that doesn't have to have the attorney's review, which I don't know how that is. If you're providing legal services, you're most likely going to have an attorney. Now, when you get to that stage, though, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming when you're first starting out and it's just you and maybe you one assistant or something, to think of the idea of ever hiring an attorney. But to hire an attorney is probably the best thing I ever did. And it did a couple things for me. One, it allowed me to have a redundancy, right? Now, if I couldn't do something, Paul could. And if Paul couldn't do something, I could. There's multiple times where conflicts happen in the court, and it's just nice to have two possible people cover it, right? So, but the other thing it did is it allowed me to focus on what I do best. And so I hired an attorney that is very good at legal analysis. Like, he knows the code in and out. He knows the procedure in and out. I don't. I'm really good at negotiating. I'm really good at persuasion, talking to people. I don't know the code very well. I'll just be honest. Before I hired Paul, anything that got past mediation, I referred out. I was like, I just knew that wasn't my strength, right? Unless it was a specific case for a specific reason, I referred it out. So I hired someone that was my complement there, and that allows us to, again, provide better service. To hire an attorney, you obviously have to have enough clients coming in. And so the other lives that we've been doing, we've done a lot of lives recently about client acquisition, how to create an offer, how to, who's your ideal client, what problem do they have, and how do you solve it? Take the content from those Facebook lives to get more clients, test your offer and scale your offer, and you should easily be able to hire an attorney quickly. And then it's just building out the SOPs from there. So when I took that 2-week cruise through Europe, we were gone for about 16 days in total. And I checked my email a total of maybe 30 minutes over that entire time. So there were those 3 stops that I did. I don't know if I checked my email. I think it was more of like I called my office and asked if they needed anything from me. And they told me what they needed, but I only did, technically 3 check-ins for about 30, maybe 45 minutes the entire 2 weeks. What was the craziest thing for me is I got home. That trip had cost me about, I was a little over 10, but less than $11,000. And when I got home, my profit for those 2 weeks was $11,000. And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, my company made me more money, not gross revenue, profit, made more money than I spent while I was on vacation. I was like, shoot, like, what's my purpose now, right? If I can go on vacation whenever I want and still make more money than I spend, it kind of opened the door to a lot of other opportunities. Now, some things didn't work, right? Again, when I took that 2-week vacation, there were some fires that needed to be put out when I got back, and that's okay, right? As long as you've planned ahead of time, most of these fires are reversible. And that's what, when I was creating this training and trying to think of what to teach, there's so many what ifs that we could address. But the most important one is that most fires are reversible. So as long as you've done some work beforehand, and you don't miss like a court deadline or something, right? Almost every fire is reversible. And if you have a team back at home monitoring the deadlines, and they know who they can contact if something comes up, it'll almost always work. So one of my best stories and my favorite stories here is I have a client, Sierra, and her daughter's school was going to Taiwan. So she was going to be gone for like 3 or 4 weeks. It was a really long time. And she was really nervous about it. She had 2 people back at the office. We spent, a good month before she left thinking through the SOPs and the trainings and what, the what ifs and that kind of stuff, and training her 2 team members. And really it just came down to, you can't possibly plan for every what if. And so you teach your team rules. If it costs less than $100, just solve the problem. Just take care of it. And if it's a deadline or something that requires an attorney and we don't have an attorney in the office, this is the attorney you talk to. And every single one of you on this, I'm sure, has a friend who could, in a bind, answer your team's questions, right? If not, make a friend. Okay. If not, tell me and we'll help you find somebody. That's the cool thing about Attorney Freedom University, right? Is we actually do have a lot of people in most practice areas. So we probably could help you find somebody that would be willing to help you in a bind. But we gave him the rules, right? Well, she was insistent that she was going to have to work. And so she took her laptop, she did all of that stuff. She got to the airport late, and you have to pull your laptop out of your bag, So she pulls it out, she separates everything. She gets through security, she grabs her bag, and she takes off for the gate. And she literally ran to the gate, got there, handed her the ticket, got on the plane. They shut the door 2 minutes after she got on the plane. About a couple hours into that flight, it's a very long flight to Taiwan for those who haven't done it. She realizes she doesn't have her laptop. She left it at security. There's nothing. I mean, she's flying over the ocean, right? There's no takebacks on this. And it's not like they're going to mail her laptop to Taiwan. And so she got there, she messaged her team, told them what happened. And I mean, she could have bought a laptop in Taiwan, I guess, but at this point it was too late. Right. And she just said, okay, so that her team then looked through, and there was one hearing that couldn't be moved. So she did do one virtual hearing from her phone, but the rest of it, she just had to check out. And she got back just thinking that the entire office would be burnt down, right? And it was great. Obviously, there was a couple clients that had a couple questions that needed to be answered, but because she had a virtual assistant answering her emails, there wasn't really a whole lot of fires there. Worst case scenario, right? The assistant just said, hey, Sierra's gone. Where this isn't, where this doesn't have to be resolved before she gets back, she'll let you know the answer on such and such a day, right? And so she spent about 2 hours in her email when she got back answering those questions that needed to be answered. And within a day, all the fires that had happened while she was gone was fixed. And that's what she said to me. She's like, my goodness, I let my fear stop me from going on a vacation like this for years. And it cost me 1 day to figure it out on the back end. Why did I not do this sooner? Right? She'd always taken her laptop to all of her trips before, and now she unplugged. She actually did that same Taiwan trip with her other daughter this last summer, and just intentionally didn't take her laptop. So let's summarize, right? First, you got to know the numbers. You've got to create a profit margin that will allow for you to hire people to fulfill the services. And that's going to be your very first thing. If you need help with that, please let me know. We have a lot of resources there that I can help you figure out how to create this profit margin, but you've got to start there. Cash flow is still the blood of your business. And so we do have to start there first. And it's more than just getting clients. Most of the time when we get here, people will say, well, I don't have enough clients. Well, that's not true. It's not that you don't have enough clients. You don't have enough cash flow. You don't have enough profit. We need to fix that first, and then we can scale getting more clients with the profit that you have. So figure out the profit first. Then take a test trip. Okay. Schedule a trip for 1 week or less. And then with your team, talk about what it would take to let you go. The biggest hurdle is going to be your email and communication with clients. So create a system there. The next one's going to be the deadlines. So review with the court, make sure there's going to be no court deadlines while you're gone, or that will be missed immediately when you get back. Then schedule a buffer day. We didn't talk about this before, but schedule a buffer day before and after the trip so that you have a day to prepare for the trip and you have a day to recover when you get back. That way, if there won't be any fires because you had a full day of uninterrupted preparation, and if there are any fires on the back end, you'll have a day to take care of them. And so you won't be getting back and going straight into a hearing and not having an opportunity to fix it. And then trust your team. If you've spent some time talking to them and training them, let them do their thing. You will find that when you let your team take ownership over their responsibilities, they will do a better work. They will achieve better results. But you've got to trust them. You've got to let them do it. So trust them. And then what I like to say is review, revise, repeat. Review what worked, create systems to repeat those systems, and review what didn't work and fix it and create a system so that it doesn't happen again. And if you do some test short trips first, you can really scale this up really quickly. And then as you get to the longer vacations, if you want to do a month or 6 weeks or something of that nature, hire an attorney. That will be a motivation to grow your business big enough that you can hire an attorney to do that. Because that's one of the things I think my wife and I are going to do this summer. We may not go to Argentina and learn Spanish, but my goal is to work less than 1 hour a day this next summer when my kids are out of school. I'm a big believer that I want to work the days that my kids are busy and not work when they're not. And I've been able to do that during the school year, but I haven't been able to do that during the summer. And so what did I do though? I hired 2 attorneys. I now have 2 full-time attorneys that are doing the work. They're crushing it. We've got teams and systems in place. It took us a couple of years to build that, right? But now I'm able to make that a reality where I'll do a little bit of coaching on Tuesdays. My wife still works 1 day a week because she enjoys it on Tuesdays. And so our kids are going to go to grandma's and grandpa's houses and play with some friends and stuff, some interaction outside of mom and dad time. And I'll work on Tuesdays. And so will my wife. But other than that, we're going to be completely off. And that's only possible by starting where we're at, right? There was one other question that was, where do you find a virtual assistant for this? And if you have any other questions while I'm answering questions, now's the time. Feel free to drop a question in the chat and I'll answer it now. And if not, we'll get out of here. But for me, there's 2 different thoughts when it comes to hiring virtual assistants. And one is you can hire an agency, and these agencies will find the virtual assistant for you, and they'll have backups and they'll have other things there. With these virtual assistants, the agency is taking a portion of the pay. So often you're paying about $6 or $7 an hour for someone in the Philippines to do this work. And the agency is taking 10 to 20% of that. So they're not making a ton of money. What I have found when I've worked with agencies like this is my virtual assistant frequently leaves. With every 3 to 6 months, you're getting a new assistant. And it's cool. They find the assistant for you and they have the backup. So if your assistant's on vacation, they have a backup to help with that. But no matter how good your SOPs are, every time someone leaves, there's a learning curve, right? And so it can be problematic. The quality of service that I have received with the agencies has not been what I wanted. And so the other option is you hire someone, headhunter or whatever you want to call them, somebody who finds people and you pay them a fee to find the person, but then that person is your employee. And every dollar you pay them goes directly to them. So this is obviously more money up front, but if you keep them long term, the return on investment's there, right? You end up paying less overall, and the person receives more, right? And so I think my virtual assistant right now, I'm paying her $7 an hour. We started her at $6. She's stoked. She is so grateful for that, especially because all of that money is coming to her. She's making almost twice as much as her other friends who are virtual assistants going through agencies. And so she's super loyal, right? When she's making that much more than everybody else, she's super loyal. And it allowed us to find a really good candidate. And so she's been with us for a lot of years. And that to me was worth it, right? So the best headhunting agency, for lack of a better word, I'm sure they'll hate that that's what I referred to them as, is Joey Vitale with, I cannot think of the name of his company, but I will put it in the chat when I remember it, okay? But Joey Vitale, he has an awesome service for helping you find people. You do need to be clear on your job description, right? He is going to help you find what you say you want, but what you say you want may not be what you actually want, right? And so you do need to get clear on that. And we were just talking about this in Attorney Freedom University yesterday about how to write those scripts. So I can connect you with other people in Attorney Freedom University to help find the right way of doing that. But when you do that, you can find some really awesome people. I've yet to find someone that works with Joey and hasn't had just an awesome success. Now, if you let Joey know I sent you, he and I have worked out a deal where he will give you $500 off of that service. And so make sure he knows that I sent you, and he'll give you that discount. And if you need a connection, I can connect you. Okay, so that's where I would say. And I think that's the only question I see in any of the comments or chats here. So we're gonna wrap this up. Here's my offer to you. And I do all of these for free, right? And usually every week we do these. There will not be one next week because I will be on a cruise. Obviously, that's why we're talking about vacation, is because I had vacation on my mind. So other than the weeks that I'm gone on vacation, we do one of these every single week. The purpose is to provide as much value as I can for free to those people who are starting out their business. And then we have obviously back-end coaching services for those who want to scale, right? And no surprise there, this is still a business, right? One of the cool things we have, and if it's okay, I just want to take like 1 minute to kind of share this with you. So is we've actually started what's called a law firm kickstart program. So I used to have a course that I sold for $19.95, $2,000. And it was the fundamental things that you needed to start a business. Just start, right? And what I noticed when you were starting businesses is there's so many shiny objects out there that it's so easy to get distracted, and you end up working all day, but not doing the things that produce results. And so me and my team, we took like everything from our different coaching programs and we threw it in a pile, and we're like, okay, what do you actually need to start a business? And we kind of broke up businesses into 3 categories of people we help. One's people who are starting. What do you need to start? And then once you've started, once you've built a foundation, how do you create consistent cash flow? And that's been our Fast Track to Freedom course. If you've seen any of the stuff I've sold for the last 2-3 years, I'm always talking about that Fast Track to Freedom course, right? And that was, the goal was to get you to 10,000 a week. And we used to charge $10,000 for that. That price has changed, and we'll talk about that another day. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Okay. So the secret is it's less. Okay. But recently my team was like, man, the Fast Track to Freedom works. It works for people who are starting out, but it works so much better. Like I can create cash flow so much faster if they've just done a couple of the foundational things first. And so we just launched. I finished the last video recording last night, the updated version of our law firm kickstart program. And instead of charging $19.95 like we used to, we're now charging $1. So my team's going to kill me because I wasn't supposed to announce this yet, but I felt like I had to. So if that's like, if you're starting your business, most of the people here, if you're thinking about vacations, you might be just starting a business. But if you're looking to just create that foundation and get to the point where you can then scale into 10,000 a week, and then obviously we have masterminds and stuff for the people who want to scale and truly take the 6-week vacations and stuff, right? Let me know. I'd love to share that with you. The landing page is not done for that, which I know my team is going to kill me that I'm offering something that's not completely done. But if you're interested in like, hey, you know what, for $1, I'd be interested in that foundational program. I'd love to send it to you. How that works is we have Attorney Freedom University, which is a monthly subscription to be a part of we've got a paid community. You got a community, you've got the courses, you've got group coaching every single week. There's a fee for that. What we've done is we've gone in and we've created it so that you can now get a week for free, like a week trial, right? And inside that is where this Law Firm Kickstart program is for $1. So you can sign in to get the week trial and get the course for $1. Most of the resources there are downloadable. So if you want to just download them and get out and not pay the reoccurring in Attorney Freedom University, you don't have to. But I'd also give you a challenge to try out that Attorney Freedom University for a week. So far, when I can get people in and they try it, they go, holy crap, how are you offering this much stuff for this little money? And they stay. So don't get me wrong. There's a sales component to this that I'm hoping works for you. But at the end of the day, whether you are paying for it or not, like when it comes to starting a business, I truly believe that starting a business is the best way to achieve your personal goals and to get you there as quickly as possible with as much freedom as possible. And so I'm going to provide these resources for $1, whether you, which is not money, right? That's hardly anything at this point because I want to see you succeed. So thank you guys for being here. I love having these conversations. I really appreciate the conversation today. I come prepared with things to talk about, but I'd much rather answer your guys' questions. So thank you for participating. As always, if you have questions, please just let me know. I'm happy to help, happy to reach out. You can reach out to me on any of these social media platforms. If you are seeing this video, then we respond to the comments in every single one of these platforms. If you asked for the SOP or something in the comments, my team will reach out to you and send that to you. And if not, we'll see you next week. So thanks, guys. Bye-bye. Okay. And if you're still here, some of the platforms are delayed, right? So I have to say bye, and then I have to be quiet so that I can trim the recording, and then I have to let the other platforms catch up. So this will all be cut off as well. But if you're seeing this, say hi. It's always fun. I'll get about one person a week who's like, hey, I saw your postscript conversation while everything else is catching up. So I usually have to give it about 1 minute. So I'm stopping talking because I want to see when the other one stops. Okay, that other one's caught up now. So, okay, thank you guys. We will see you in the next one.